Welcome to The Explainer. Now, when you think about global power, you probably think of armies, economies, right? Hard power. But what if the real competition, the one that's shaping our future, is all about the power to attract and persuade? Today, we're diving into that fascinating world of soft power.
So let's start with this big question, one that kind of flips our usual view of global power on its head. If being influential isn't just about having the biggest army, then who else is out there pulling the strings and shaping our world?
Because here's the thing. While America's military might is pretty much unrivaled, that ability to attract, to get others to want the same things you want, well, that's a whole different ballgame. It's a much more crowded and competitive field. So today, we're going to take you on a tour of the other major players in this global race for influence.
And we're going to start with a really powerful history lesson from the Cold War. It's the story of the Soviet Union, a nation that built up this immense, terrifying hard power, only to watch its ability to attract and persuade just crumble from the inside out.
You know, the Soviet journey with soft power was a total roller coaster. Right after World War II, their resistance to Hitler and their opposition to European imperialism gave them this huge appeal across the world. And then, in '57, Sputnik, what a massive triumph. It projected this image of scientific genius. But that image was completely shattered by their own actions. The brutal invasions of Hungary in '56 and Czechoslovakia in '68, that just killed their credibility. By the time their Berlin Wall fell, their soft power was basically gone.
And what's so fascinating here is the core contradiction. I mean, the Soviets had world-class culture, the Bolshoi Ballet, incredible orchestras, and, undeniable scientific wins. But all those utopian promises were constantly being torpedoed by the grim reality of brutal repression at home and a foreign policy that relied on tanks, not persuasion. They just couldn't compete with the appeal of Western pop culture. There was no socialist Elvis,
All right, let's jump to the present day and see how Europe has really emerged as a soft-power giant in its own right, wielding a totally different kind of influence that's all about culture, values, and diplomacy.
So, take a look at this number, 70%. Any guesses what that represents in the world of global influence?
That's the staggering percentage of all global development aid that comes from European nations. It highlights a huge source of Europe's soft power, a foreign policy that's often seen as constructive, focused on aid and peacekeeping. It really helps cultivate an image of a global partner, which is an incredibly attractive asset to have.
And their influence comes from this really diverse arsenal. I mean, European culture, art, fashion, food, it's still a global standard. But it's also about their values. Policies on big issues like climate change or abolishing the death penalty, they often connect more with younger generations around the world than American policies do. It makes Europe's model feel, well, modern and appealing.
So here's the crucial point. The European Union itself has become this massive soft power resource. Just think about it. The idea that a continent, once the heart of the world's most brutal wars, is now an island of peace, that's an incredibly powerful story. And you can see its magnetic pull in the long line of countries that have literally reshaped their entire societies just for a chance to get in.
Okay, let's pivot now and head over to Asia. We're talking about a region with incredibly ancient cultural roots and, today, rapidly growing potential. After centuries of Western dominance, Asia is really re-emerging as a center of economic and cultural gravity.
This table kind of gives us a quick report card. You've got Japan, whose pop culture is just a global force, but its historical baggage in the region is still a real barrier. Then there's China. Its mind-blowing economic growth and big prestige projects like the Olympics definitely create attraction, but its authoritarian system is a major handicap. And India's vibrant culture is admired everywhere, but it's often overshadowed by a reputation for bureaucracy.
And here's a really fascinating point about Japan. While its economy was stagnating in the 90s, what happened to its cultural influence? It exploded. Pokemon, video games, animation, they basically conquered the world. And that proves something absolutely crucial. A country's soft power isn't always tied to its economic performance. It can be incredibly resilient.
But hang on, because the story of soft power today isn't just about nations anymore. There are new, nimble players on the field who are changing the rules of the game, creating these networks of influence that operate completely outside of traditional diplomacy.
I mean, just look at this chart. The 1990s saw this incredible explosion in non-governmental organizations, or NGOs. Fueled by the information age, their numbers more than quadrupled in a single decade. It created this powerful new force on the world stage.
And these groups often act as a kind of global conscience. They don't have armies, but they absolutely wield influence. How?
by attracting media attention and public support to their cause, and then naming and shaming powerful governments and corporations until they change their policies. They've become direct competitors for influence.
And here's how it works. Technology lets individuals and small groups create networks that completely bypass governments. A really famous example is the campaign to ban landmines. That wasn't driven by a superpower. No, it was driven by a coalition of NGOs using the internet to coordinate and mobilize support all over the world.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It means the old model of global power, that simple pyramid with one superpower at the very top, is completely obsolete. We're living in a complex ecosystem now, where influence flows not just from nations, but from international unions and vast global networks.
So, we'll leave you with this final thought. In a world where a hashtag can spark a movement and a viral video can challenge a government, the very definition of power is up for grabs. And that promises to redefine the entire game of global politics.